to build a strategic supply of ammunition, which might, as
you're aware that Ukraine uses probably around 4,000 shells a day, so having 5,000 a month barely keeps up if building up our surplus. Never mind if we want to donate any to Ukraine.
But that's just what.
Over the Horizon radar, $4.7 million. There's been a lot of controversy over the selection of the land up north of Peterborough. A lot of farmers are upset. I guess you're talking expropriation. Why was that site selected? And was there, in your opinion, enough consultation with the local community and property owners?
I think that goes back to Mr. Anderson's important question about operational requirements. And the site was chosen on the basis of ionospheric data and physics. It wasn't randomly chosen, as you can expect. It's a very expensive and complicated system. And the siting of the send and receive, the transmit and receive sites were chosen based on best location, best capacity. And I can tell you that major outreach has taken place. Town halls have been held. I've briefed members of Parliament. I've connected members of Parliament to the department for detailed briefings. And that dialogue continues, so we're hopeful we'll be able to move forward.
So with the over-the-polar radar system, has the site been selected as well? And where are we at with that? I know there was some initial dollars that were given to an organization up in around.
Yeah, it's not finalized yet. It's under research. Certainly, we'll give you any information we've got on that. But obviously, the polar situation, so it's not quite the same.
Okay. Have you been concerned at all about making sure that our North Warning System is fully functional until these get up and built? And they're supposed to be done end of life in 2025. Guess what? We're at the end of 2025.
Can I ask Ms. Beck to give you a quick update on that?
Yeah.
Happy to respond. The North Warning System, despite its age, is being properly maintained and is in full operation. We are working, depends on the day, but we make sure that the vast majority is responded to, certainly in times of need. We're there within hours to make sure that the situation is resolved and the equipment is back up and running. But by and large, it's in really good shape for an old system like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bazan. I did provide extra time because of the interruptions. We only have a few minutes left. Ms. Romano, do you want to? I can't give you 5 minutes. Sorry, but take a minute or two.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And it's not Romano. I'm not cheese, but thank you. Thank you very much, Minister, for being here today. You alluded a little bit about Borealis, but I'd like if you could elaborate a little bit about DISH. I know that's something, the Defense Innovation Secure Hub is something that we're actively pursuing. If you'd like to just elaborate quickly on that.
We're one of the only jurisdictions that doesn't have a specialized series of locations where we can conduct classified research with, for example, CSE and with private sector actors like IBM and startups, venture capitalists, foreign direct investors like sovereign wealth funds. We need to connect our private sector with our public sector on the defense side so that the private sector has a better understanding of what our needs will be. And in so doing, we will give rise to research centers that are capable of having classified research conducted. Because we don't want to necessarily tip our hat to what we're doing, what we need to keep ourselves secure and sovereign. So that's why we've decided to stand up a series of these dishes around the country. We'll be catching up to other actors like the United States. And in the design of this system, we've looked around the world. What has worked, what hasn't worked. And we're very encouraged. We've got so much Canadian talent, as you know, Ms. Romanato, in Quebec, elsewhere. So much talent, so many engineers, so many entrepreneurs. I like to say we're going to compete and we're going to win, and that's what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Romanato. I apologize. I have misspoke on a few of my the members of the Liberal Party. All of them, I have actually. Mr. Kibble, you should feel okay because you're in good company. And I do apologize for that, Mr. Yeah, I do. Minister, thank you for being here. I am going to suspend for a moment to allow us to do a transition and to
Mr. Chair, could I just take a minute to wish all members of the Canadian Armed Forces a great holiday, happy holiday, and Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Thank them for their service wherever they are here, and I'm sure all members would join in wishing them the very best, and thank them for their service. Thank you, sir.
Well said. Thank you. Meeting suspended just for a moment. I want to welcome to the table Julie Chassé, Chief Financial Officer at the Communications and Security Establishment. And we'll continue to proceed with questions. I will have Mr. Kibble go up first for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to delve in a little bit on the pay raises, and we often hear 20% pay raises. It's good news. Everybody be excited. But if someone could answer me, of the 20%, how many of the ranks are getting the 20% pay raise? We have a whole list of levels of ranks.
20% pay raise that we're very grateful for is for the lowest rank, the privates.
So just the one rank. And then the next level is 13%, is that correct?
Then the next level is 13% for middle grade.
So how many rank
officer.
levels are getting the 13%? If it's just one getting the 20%, the rest are getting...
It's all trained privates, Chair, all the way to the rank of lieutenant colonel.
So that'd be about 12 or 13 ranks, correct? And then for the higher ranks, where they have the most qualifications, the most skill, the most experience, and their pay raise would be how much?
8%.
8%. Okay, so we're that's certainly not rewarding achievement and skill and expertise, in my opinion. However, I appreciate that it is a positive pay raise overall. It's just not quite as it's advertised. Yes, percentages. I'd like to talk about the CFHD, which replaced the post-living differential. Now, replaced with the CFHD, and I've heard from the many bases that I've visited and tours, there are certainly cases of people that when they've lost their PLD, they actually get a pay decrease, even with the new pay raise, because they're ineligible for the new CFHD. So could you tell me what ranks do get and which ranks or do not get the CFHD?
Housing differential, Chair, is not, it's agnostic of rank, but it does illustrate the importance of getting this right for all compensation and benefits. The intent is not to take away, it's to actually reward behavior and the implications of living in certain locations where our bases are.
So my understanding, and maybe you could confirm for me, that for those that are earning about the corporal rank and above, because of their salary, are ineligible for the CFHD benefit, and as well, if they're living in PMQs, they're also. Can you confirm that for me, please?
I'm unable to confirm the specifics, but again, the intention is that folks that are residing in locations that have higher cost of living, that we use the mechanisms available to us to make sure that
My understanding is, and maybe you could confirm this, then I'll use a different way. If someone's making $90,000 or higher in their annual salary, they're ineligible for the CFHD. And if you could also confirm, are they ineligible if they're living in military quarters?
Chair, I think the committee deserves a complete answer. Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide that.
Okay, well, that is my understanding. So really, there's very few that are getting the CFHD, whereas the PLD was across-the-board rate. Maybe you could confirm that for me. The old PLD was across the road, regardless of rank, regardless of ability, but it was based on where you lived and what the cost of living was there. It doesn't seem very fair to me. And then, have you heard of any stories? Because I have. Have you heard any stories of people that are, even with the new pay raise, are getting less per month because they've lost their PLD, they do not get the CFHD, and that is greater than the amount of their pay raise. And this happens at the majority of ranks, except for in the private area.
It does illustrate the point, Chair. We really need to get this right. The intention is not to take away. Each individual, depending on trade and location, will be a different circumstance, whether the type of unit, the specific qualification.
So I appreciate that you feel that you need to get it the right way. Could you state for the record, do you feel that we've gotten it the right way? And do you feel that this should be reviewed? Because I don't think that our serving members, some should be getting a pay raise, but some others, their pay raise is nullified, and in fact, they lose money. And I've heard a lot of examples. Do you think this is right?
One of the great benefits of this investment in compensation and benefits is allowing us to make sure we get this right. It is constantly under review. The implementation of the housing differential was not to take away. It was actually to strengthen and incentivize the right behaviors. We will
Feel that-
continually look at getting.
So
it right.
you're stating that you feel that the CFHD was to strengthen the right behaviors, or is it to compensate for the more expensive locations where people have to live? And also, regardless of your rank, regardless of your pay level that you've earned, should you not be receiving an equal amount? Is not the cost of living the same?
Thank you for allowing me to express this in the right way, because this is important. It is a suite of benefits that we're trying to enable the young soldier living in Toronto, the aviator in Cold Lake. Each circumstance is different. We need to continually look at it. The Canadian Forces housing differential and the way we conceived it and the way it was rehearsed and tested did manifest in ways that we need to continually review. We're very grateful for the investment. There are a suite of incentives to include housing differential, pay for field and deployments on ships, incentives for folks that take
And
postings.
focusing on the housing and not the other benefits, which I strongly believe that our serving members deserve, whether it's deployment or at sea. But specifically for the housing, are you committing that there is, or are you stating that there is an ongoing review, or just a general platitude that you feel there should potentially be a review?
We will always look at the incentives, particular to housing, because it's different in each location, to make sure we get it right.
Ongoing
thank
review
you. Mr.
at the
Coe?
moment? There is an ongoing?
We are, I'll give you a complete answer, sir, Chair, for
Yeah.
the specific housing question, but compensation benefit is something we continually look at to include.
Thank you. Ms. Lapointe, you have up to 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Madame Xavier, the estimates include new resources for cyber defense and communications security. Can you tell us what capabilities or capacity enhancements that this funding will allow the communications security establishment?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. So yes, in SUPS B, the CSC is getting an additional $70 million. And the majority of that funding is going towards the CRIP program that is part of our mandate. Part of what we do at the agency is ensure that cryptography and communication security is well protected, and we have to continue to invest in that infrastructure. So as a result, 9.5 million of that is for exactly that. It's to replace aging infrastructure and continue to modernize. And another way to look at that is continuing to ensure that we're upgrading the locks and keys. And then the other 22.5 million of that helps us is a reprofile, and we heard that term used earlier with the Minister, where it's an opportunity to ensure that we're aligning the funding with the project deliverables and continuing to keep the project on track. And so we, not all crypt is created equal. We need to ensure that the cryptography that we are using continues to ensure that our data remains secure and ensure that it is going to be able to stay protected from adversaries who are potentially interested in some of that data, but as well as also underpins all military communications and ensures that we are able to operate all the capabilities, such as fighter jets, for example, that are used by the military in ensuring that that cryptography is as protected as can be. So most of the investments are there. There's portions of the investments that are going to other departments. They're called departmental transfers, including ensuring that we're continuing to keep updated our what we call our Secure Communications for National Leadership Program, which is our secure devices that we use to communicate, as well as transferring some funding to our Foreign Affairs Department for our overseas footprint, as well as to the RCMP to continue to do the work they do on our behalf when we're doing security screening in particular, for example.
So, given your wealth of experience and expertise, can you tell us how the new funding will strengthen CSC's ability to protect the government's systems and ensure that support secure operations across the federal departments?
So as mentioned, CSC has in its mandate to do cybersecurity and information assurance. And to be able to do information assurance, you need to have cryptography and really stay on the leading edge of what will come with regards to protecting our systems. Cryptography is protecting the house, but to be able to ensure that all the locks and the keys remain secure and that we're able to have that communication remains secure, we have to continue to update it and invest in it to make sure that the keys aren't stolen and they're not copied. And so, as being the National ComSec Authority, the Communications Security Authority for Canada, we protect the most classified information. We need to ensure that that information remains protected. We do this in allyship with other partners, but in particular, I'm pleased about the announcements that were made by the Prime Minister in July, where we're working, for example, with the UK in ensuring that we continue to diversify our cryptography. We continue to ensure that we have resilience in the Five Eye partnership when it comes to cryptography, and we are making those investments, especially as we continue to invest in sovereign solutions for Canada.
Thank you. Lieutenant General Kelsey, the estimates include funding for training, for readiness, and for equipment support. Can you tell us what improvements to operational preparedness does this enable for the Canadian Armed Forces?
Significant investment relates to our ability to put more folks in the field for training, more flying hours. So it's focused very much on the force we have today. So it's increasing the availability, opening and accessing more parts, as well as delivering more training across the board, air, land, sea, and special forces.
And Deputy Minister Beck, the estimates include additional authorities for several major capital projects. Can you outline how the additional funding supports progress on shipbuilding, aircraft acquisition, on infrastructure projects already underway? How does that support those projects now underway?
In our discussions across the country with Canadian industry, what they have always been looking for from us are long-term commitments and a clear signal from the government that we are committed to all of our projects, of course, but being able to deliver our funding on time and frankly in advance where possible so that they can procure long lead items, so that they can train their workforce, so they can make sure they're ready when there's a surge requirement. These are the kinds of funds that will contribute to that confidence in government to be able to deliver our side of the contract, and therefore mean that the military will have the equipment it needs at the time it needs it.
So within that vein, how will the resources in these estimates help the department improve the management and the delivery of those capital projects?
At the same time as we deliver on existing contracts, and by that I mean uphold our side of it, we are reviewing how we make our decisions internally. Of course, we can control how we manage in our own department, but I think this exercise coming before you today and looking at how supplementary estimates work are a demonstration of the complexity of government right now in delivering any contract, and this is part of the overall review that's underway, including with the new Defence Investment Agency, to see how we can do better in the future for Canadian industry, as well as resulting in better outcomes for the armed forces.
Monsieur Savard, Tremblay, you have up to 6 minutes.
Merci. Je souhaiterais quand même débuter par...
Thank you. I'll start by a motion based on our discussions. And it was unanimous, I believe, so it shouldn't take too long. It was handed over to Sherry. It'd be good to have a copy. I have a number of them. I have plenty.
C'est à propos de C11, l'étude de C11.
It has to do with the study on C11. Good. The only difference between the version you've received and what I'm going to be reading is literally C11. That's the only change. Given that the committee was unable to hear from Maurice J. Fish, the interpreter is not reading Whereas the committee was unable to hear the testimony of the Honourable Morris J. Fish or to question him due to technical difficulties, whereas the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada did not appear before the committee despite the invitation extended to him, and despite the importance of his testimony as emphasized in the study motion adopted on October 23rd, 2025, whereas the transcripts of the meetings of November 20th and November 27th and December 2nd, 2025 are still not available in both official languages, that committee members be granted an additional week following the adoption of this motion to submit their proposed amendments to the clerk, and that clause-by-clause consideration of the bill be postponed until Parliament returns in January 2026.
Do we need unanimous consent? But there is, it's a notice of the motion. Do we, I believe we need unanimous consent to proceed. Is that correct?
Oui, c'est ça.
You don't have unanimous consent.
So, yes, because it's not related.
It's not part of the supplements, the discussion that we're having. We do need unanimous consent to proceed if we put forward this motion. Do we have unanimous consent? Okay. For the debate, Ms. Raminato.
Je veux remercier mon honorable collègue.
I'd like to
pour le-
thank my honourable colleague for this notice of motion. I just want to clarify. He said he's going to add C11 somewhere? Yeah, it's at the bottom. A detailed study of the bill. That clause-by-clause consideration of the bill. And I just wanted to add C11. I think it's quite clear what we're discussing, but I just wanted to mention that. I'm in agreement because we did not hear from the Honourable Morris Fish due to these technical issues. I know he sent in his opening statement, but we did not have an opportunity to ask him questions. That was critical, his first report. I agree that perhaps it would be good for the committee to reinvite him to hear from him. So I'm in agreement that it's a good idea to have this opportunity to have a discussion with Justice Fish. Not sure if other colleagues are in agreement.
Mr. Bazan, you're up next.
We're in agreement and also raise the concern around the lack of bilingual documents, or as well as the transcripts from our previous three meetings on Bill C11. Makes it difficult to take testimony and build it into potential amendments to the bill. So that is a concern, so I support this 100%.
Anybody else? Let me see here. Yes, Ms. Raminato.
Donc, pour le...
So, on the amendments, so it's a week later, so that would be due by next Tuesday. Can we have the date for amendments? You're saying to submit their proposed amendment to the clerk and that be clause by clause be postponed until January. We agree with that. I just would like to know the deadline, the last date for amendments to come in. We don't need to change the motion. I just want those instructions.
Being advised that amendments requirement would be by December 11th at 4 p.m. Any further debate? So are you requesting the addition of the amendment? No?
No, I just wanted to
You
get
just
the
want to
clarity.
clarify the date by
Yeah,
which
that's
is
C'est
it.
clair,
Just-
puis là, ça a été dit à caméra ouverte, fait qu'on a une date.
I think it's clear, and it's been said openly here, so yes, no need to change the motion, just to be clear on the deadline.
This also then postpones our clause by clause, right, for the next meeting. So unanimous consent is a given? Are we proceeding? Do we need to vote on it? No? Passed. Yes, Mr. Bazan.
Yeah, just in lieu of this, since we're talking about, and I gave notice of motion last Tuesday, November 25th, I'll move the following motion that pursuant to Standing Order 1081A, the committee requests the Department of National Defence to table the full unredacted memorandum of understanding with the province of Ontario concerning the implementation of the provisions contained in Bill C-11, and that the memorandum of understanding be tabled with the committee no more than 5 days after the passage of this motion. And again, I think this is an important piece of information that we need in our full consideration of potential amendments.
Mr. Armanado?
Would it be possible for me just to pull it up, because I know we received it? Can you give me one moment to pull it up so I can follow along? One moment.
I don't wish to suspend. Is that okay if we just take a moment just to have the review? Sorry, witnesses. Trying to take care of business here.
That affects you guys.
It affects you, absolutely.
Désolé également, mais vous comprenez, c'est une de...
Apologies also. It's one of our last meetings before the breaks.
Pull it up. On that note, I'd like to move an amendment. And I will explain the amendment and then I'll read it out and I will happily send it around. So the amendment is to remove the word unredacted and to add after the word to table the following in accordance with the Access to Information Act and to replace no more than 5 days by as soon as possible. So the amended motion would read that pursuant to Standing Order 108, 1A, the committee requests the Department of National Defense to table, in accordance with the Access to Information Act, the full Memorandum of Understanding with the Province of Ontario concerning the implementation of the provisions contained in Bill C-11, and that the Memorandum of Understanding be tabled with the committee as soon as possible after the passage of this motion. And if you'd like, I can send that around.
In both languages?
In both languages.
For the debate, Mr. Bazan.
I don't have a problem with making under access to information and making sure that we're protecting any sensitive information. However, the timeline on this has to be that we receive this before we start consideration of clause by clause, and preferably before we have to have amendments in. That's why the 5 days is important. If we're going to do our work and do it in an informed manner, we need to have this document. So I'm opposed to the timeline that you have as soon as possible can mean 2 years from now. Like I know that some of my access to information requests with the department have been 6, 7 years and still haven't gotten it back.
Monsieur Sabat-Tremblay.
D'accord avec la loi d'accès.
Agree with the Access to Information Act. As to the 5 days, given my experience in another committee where we had asked for documents and even the senior officials had promised we could get them within the timeline we had indicated. In fact, it was 3 or 4 times longer a timeline. It's not compelling, but I think it is still good to indicate the actual deadline. Although I don't really expect it to happen in the 5 days. I think indicating it on paper is a way of making things move. But as for access to information, I have no problem with that. Mr. Chair, now, I would add a sub-amendment to the amendment that we remove the issue of as soon as possible, but maintain access to information.
So you got a sub-amendment.
We have a sub-amendment or we have further debate? I mean, I think Mr. Sabat-Tremblay, are you... Yeah. You want to move the sub-amendment? Okay. Can we, Mr. Ramanano?
Sous-amendement, c'est
The sub-amendment would be to keep the 5 days, this proposed change, getting back to the original motion, the 5 days. But we add access to information, that comment about access to information.
So let's be honest, 5 days is not reasonable. But we could say before the next meeting to study C-11. Mr. Bazan mentioned that he would like to have it before we start clause. Absolutely. So, but 5 days is not realistic. Let's be honest. It's not. It just, you need time to be able to produce this. But I would say before the next meeting of the C-11 for sure. but I don't think we're going to be able to get it in 5 days. And I don't want to be putting something out there that we know is not going to happen.
La prochaine est dans 5 jours. C'était
The next one was 5 days. The next,
Know when Justice Fish is available. We don't know if he's available next week. We said we're moving clause by clause into the new year. The new year's end of January before the House comes back. So I don't know Mr. Fish's availability. He may not even be here next week. So I would say let's see if we can get Justice Fish scheduled to come. But I think it's reasonable to say before we start clause by clause. Absolutely, I agree.
Non, c'est parce que c'est tout simplement pas ça.
no, it's just that that's not what we're talking about. At the start, when you were saying before the next meeting on C11, I thought that was Tuesday, so that's 5 days. But if you're talking about clause by clause, that's something separate. I just wanted to clarify that. That said, what I'm concerned about with Madame Romanato's proposal here is that it be unclear. You send a directive, you ask for documents within a timeline, but we ourselves don't even know when that would be. We ourselves don't know when the meeting will be, that we say before a meeting, but we don't know when that is. That's what I'm saying.
Renato.
Could we say before clause by clause? We start clause by clause? Would that be sufficient? Avant qu'on commence.
Before we start clause by clause.
C'est ça.
Si on le sait pas, c'est quand
If we don't know when that is. Well, we just passed a motion saying that we would move clause by clause to January. Yes, but if, based on what you're saying, it happens that Mr. Fish is unavailable or something else happens and we can't, let's say it's February 2nd, the second week of February rather than that first one in January, the indications we have here in this motion we're requesting for documents, that's what I'm saying. So if you consider the motion we just passed, saying that we were going to start with clause by clause, not until Parliament resumes in January. If Mr. Fish is not available next week, that means we might maybe only have him available end of January, meaning that we can't start clause by clause until, say, early February. But knowing that we need to have this MOU prior to that. Before we start clause by clause. I understand the idea. I think that's what we all want on our side. But my concern is this. Okay, let's say I were to get this order. I would be the one to produce documents, and I were to get that request from the committee. My first question would be, when? What's the date? That's what I'm saying.
So let's recap. We have a unanimous motion already that we've passed in regards to your proposal with Mr. Fish and so forth. That's already in. Now we have a motion put forth by Mr. Bazan, amended by Ms. Raminato, and sub-amended. Can I have a recap on the sub-amended motion? Clerk, do you want to recap where we're at, please?
So my understanding is that the sub-amendment of Monsieur Savard-Tremblay is to remove the as soon as possible and keep the no more than 5 days.
You can always move another amendment after.
Si Madame Romanado veut mettre un délai.
If Madame Romanado wants a more realistic deadline, that's fine, but I want it to be indicated. We don't want something so vague as to say before a meeting we don't have the date for yet. I think she's having discussions. I'm not sure she heard me.
What I understood, if I may interpret, was to have it before clause by clause. Mr. Bazan first, then Ms. Raminato.
Just on a point of order, that you got a sub-amendment that removes as soon as possible from the amendment proposed by Ms. Raminato, that we should deal with that, and then if there's going to be, they have a chance then to modify to do a sub-amendment as well to the amendment. If that's so chosen, then we can go there. So let's vote on as soon as possible.
Ben, en fait, si je veux.
It's just that if we want to consider the concern Madame Romanado has, is that the deadline is not reasonable according to her. But my point is, I'm not in disagreement with that. It's good to have a reasonable deadline, but having an uncertain date for a meeting might not be that useful for the drafting of documents. Why not say it could be upon our return in January? Would that be better?
So we are still in debate.
Parce que on a une
We're in
date pour le
debate
retour.
of the sub-amendment. So let's continue on that debate. And I think we're debating the terminology of when that date should be. Mr. Ramanado.
So I'm fine with dealing with the sub-amendment. It makes it a lot cleaner, but I think it'd be helpful if we can actually have 2 seconds just to talk, because I think we can come up with a solution. Yeah.
Okay, so I can suspend so we can discuss this very quickly.
Clear off the sub-amendment first.
We can.
Then we can
We
deal
can
with
do
the
it in
amendment.
suspension too. I suspend just for a moment. Okay, let's. Monsieur Savard-Tremblay, do you have anything to add?
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I was convinced to remove my sub-amendment but table another. So the sub-amendment to the amendment that I was raising addresses 2 issues. First, keep the part on access to information, and instead of saying as soon as possible, say before January 15th, 2026. So that is the new sub-amendment on the table.
And resolve the initial motion and proceed with a sub-amendment as stated by Monsieur Savard-Tremblay. Done. All agreed. Back to the no?
Got to vote on the full amendment.
Okay. Can we
Full amended
return?
motion.
Are we proceeding?
No, you got to vote on the full amended motion.
Well, I thought we had okay.
Okay.
Can we vote on the amended motion?
Say
Is
vote.
unanimous consent? All
Yep.
good? Passed. Okay. We are back to the witnesses, and I believe, Mr. Savard-Tremblay, that was your time. So thank you for proceeding. I am going to go now to the Conservative member, and that will be Mr. Anderson.
Ms. Beck, the modernization strategy assumes 8,500 new regular force and 8,500 new reserve personnel by 2040. Has your department modeled whether the current recruiting and training pipeline is capable of generating that number?
I'll turn to the vice after to add more, but that is absolutely what we are seized at. And I would say it's not just as simple, in fact, as recruiting more people. It's making sure they have the equipment they need, the training grounds they need, the housing, the benefits that are all there. So this is a complex process that marches together. It's not
Indeed.
just a question of...
And have you got an actual plan to do that?
We
Have
do.
you, pardon me?
We do.
You do have a model?
We do.
Are we able to see that model?
Not at this minute, but
No.
we can certainly come back and go into more detail.
Okay, can we have that sent to us then? Thanks so much. General Kelsey, Inflection Point 2025 makes clear that Canada can't currently deploy and sustain even a single warfighting brigade, let alone a division. What is the timeline to grow the force to division scale? And, yeah.
The first step is aggregating the combat divisions, as you alluded to, an inflection point, but they are hollow, and we only have the ability to deploy one at a time if we aggregate the people equipment as one. The Army commander has quite a bit of work to do. He has a solid plan, but it requires detailed investment over time. He has plotted it out. To your earlier question, this includes equipment, where those folks will be located, as well as all the systems that will enable the individuals and families.
Okay, and have we got a timeline on that?
He has a timeline, but
What is
That's
that
the
timeline?
aggregation of the structure we have. What he's working on now with his leadership team is the specifics of when the maneuver division will be combat ready, when the continental division, and more importantly, the sustainment division. Those are
Okay,
the
so
three.
we don't have a date then on that.
He does, but we need to actually plot through the specific investments.
Okay. Expanding the CAF is impossible without retaining the trained force. What's the current attrition rate, and how does that compare to your forecasted attrition when modeling the force growth?
It's a huge consideration. Our attrition compared to our Five Eyes is actually better, but we're not satisfied. We plot individually how many people were projected to retire or move on, but it's only as good as the package of compensation, of people joining and using the equipment they aspire to or believe. It's the complete picture. So we're spending as much energy on retention of the talent we have and cultivating it as we are as getting folks in the door.
Okay, so the net effect then, is the force at this moment actually expanding, or is it degrading?
It's actually expanding for the first time in a decade.
Okay. Can the Army today generate even a single reserve battalion that meets NATO readiness standards for warfighting?
The question is, Chair, specific to a reserve battalion, the answer is no. That's not their role. They're not equipped, and they have not been invested in.
Okay.
That's what needs to change.
Okay. With regard to the Canadian Rangers and Arctic expansion, the document highlights the Arctic as a priority and states the Rangers must be integrated into a second division structure for domestic defense. What additional personnel training and equipment growth do you foresee for the Rangers?
The Ranger enhancement, as it's reflected in that document, focuses on the equipment and the roles. Each community is different, particularly across the north, on what size of Ranger Patrol they can sustain. In fact, some of those communities are getting smaller. The intention is to grow, to make the most sense for the communities, but we want not just persistent presence, we want enhanced roles in communication and domain awareness across the Arctic.
Okay. And the Inflection Point 2025 acknowledges that Canada lacks sufficient ranges, simulation capacity, and instructor to absorb more recruits. What new infrastructure projects are funded to expand training capacity, and what's the timeline for delivery?
Timeline is under review right now. We have a recruiting campaign board that's not just looking at the folks coming in. It's this more challenging pipeline to take the recruit to what we refer to as the functional point. And it's ranges, it's growing housing, it's instructors. Our challenge is we're trying to do it all at the same time. So the sequence of the campaign board is to figure out just that. Each service slightly different, but that is the singular priority of the Chief of Defense Staff. And that's in fact, the next meeting of the recruiting campaign board is next week to talk about that precise thing. The pipeline.
And if the facilities lag behind, what does that do to the training bottleneck?
That is what dictates the tempo. It's an excellent question. It's something we recognize. We can make choice. We can do ad hoc. We can put people into the field in tents or take risk in how we deliver training on a ship. Our preference is to get the sequence right, which is why despite attracting an enormous number of Canadians that want to join, we have to be disciplined in how quickly we open the gateway to make sure we can manage our growth correctly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Watchorn, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to bring in the Canadian Coast Guard into the conversation. Thank you for being here. I wanted to include you. In the Sup-Bs, there's $12.6 million for towing in the West Coast, $3.6 million for an investment of any kind of leaks of hydrocarbons. Can you tell us how this funding will be spent? Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. First of all, the towing on the West Coast is really a program that began with OPP, the Ocean Protection Program, in 2018. That is a way to be able to respond to ships that are disabled, as we say in English. It's an environmental protection. It involves maritime security. It's a way to ensure protection, environmental protection. Second, it is an interim measure because the government will be providing
National strategy on emergency towing. Transport Canada is leading that. They will be presenting that to the government the next calendar year with the support of Coast Guard. And that analysis and study has looked at all of the needs on emergency towing from coast to coast to coast, including the Arctic. That study will then help inform government on what the next steps are. So this is an interim capacity that will be extended that will provide that. Just for your information, these vessels since 2018 have been used 120 times. It is not just for disabled vessels, but also, of course, for search and rescue and environmental response, and they have provided that backstop for the West Coast.
Maybe you could just give us an update on how the integration is going into the Ministry of National Defence from the Coast Guard. How is that operating? How are the troops how are the members taking it, and how's that going?
The transition integration has been seamless from an operations perspective. From day to day, the Coast Guard continues to do the work they have done. We have received an extremely warm welcome from the department. We feel the love. There is a huge amount of opportunities for integration, opportunities where we can now do joint planning. We can look at the procurement opportunities. There is a huge opportunity here, but also we see ourselves as a real partner in the defense, security, and intelligence in what we do. We are not going to get away from what we do in our key mandate, but we are able to now be able to provide that multiplier from a Coast Guard perspective in what the government wants to achieve from a defense and security perspective.
Okay, so we have spoken in the past about information and data collection and surveillance. Has that begun with the integration?
Coast Guard has always been able to collect information. They've been able to collect information for the purposes of safety and have been able to share that information for the purposes of safety. With the proposals under BC-12 or C-12, we will now be able to collect the information for the purpose of security and then share it with our defense, security, and intelligence partners. So we have the capability. We're already collecting information for safety. We will now be able to share that same information as well as with additional capabilities on our 126 ships, on our 23 helicopters, and with our operations centers and all of the land assets that we currently have to be able to provide a greater domain awareness, both on the water, below the water, and above the water.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Monsieur Savard-Tremblay, you have 2.5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Là, j'ai pas de
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no motion now, so it really will only last 2.5 minutes. My question is for the Communication Security Establishment, Madame Xavier and Madame Chassé. I'm surprised you're not sitting together. They've separated you, apparently. The Centre is asking for $29.85 million under item A1, so $22.45 million for crypto and $7.5 for classified information. Briefly, can you tell us what crypto system is obsolete? Look, it's part of our mandate, as I was saying earlier, Mr. Chair, to make sure that intelligence remains protected. We need to continue to modernize the system because systems tend to age, and also because encryption is not always every encryption is not the same. We need to be at the leading edge so that we can be sure that we're ahead of our adversaries. This is why we need to continue to modernize our encryption and crypto methodologies. This being said, we are working with all our partners, specifically defense partners, to make sure all systems are up to date on a daily basis. So we have an entire system that operates seamlessly so that we are managing all systems. I can't give you a specific number as to how much needs to be modernized. We have a plan. We are continuing to improve modernizations on an ongoing basis. I understand that you're saying that is to be on the leading edge, to not be lagging behind, but is there something that is currently a risk to governmental communications internally, or is that not what you're referring to? Are you saying it would be preferable, or are you saying we could be in a problematic situation? Advances in quantum and the fact that we always have an eye on the future. I'll switch to English because I'm more familiar in English.
Trying to ensure that we're staying ahead of what technology changes are coming. We're paying close attention to post-quantum computing, which is really the technology that is perhaps within reach, I'd say within 20 to 2030, where we're seeing that there could be a computer that's large enough to potentially break the encryption that we have. Donc, c'est pas pour dire que le risque existe en ce moment, mais nous devons...
It's not to say the risk currently exists, but we need to continue to invest to make sure that the risk does not land here. That's what we're doing with the Five Eyes. We're not alone. We all have to make sure that we are moving ahead and being ahead of technology so we don't face that risk, because we know that our adversaries would like to be able to better understand what we are discussing in a secure context or steal our data. We can't have that happen.
Is it Ms. Gallant? Is it to you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the CSE chief. Last time you were in this committee, you promised to get back to us on the amount of money allocated to set up a cybersecurity collaboration platform and incident management tool with Shared Services Canada and the CSE. Can you give us that amount today?
Mr. Chair, I cannot give you that amount today because that work with our shared services and Treasury Board colleagues is still something that is underway. As discussed, we commit to be able to give an update on that to the committee. I have no problem being able to come back with that information once it becomes available.
Thank you. With the emergence of agentic AI, what amount is being directed towards the magnification of the threat environment?
Mr. Chair, if I understand the question correctly, the threat of AI is definitely something we have seen from the various threat assessments that we've done. From our National Cyber Threat Assessment that was published in the fall of 2024, as well as what we saw when we put out our threats to democratic processes. We were clear about seeing artificial intelligence being an amplifier when it comes to threat. We are clear about the fact that we know that artificial intelligence will lower the bar of entry for cyber criminals, for state actors to be able to leverage artificial intelligence to multiply the efforts that they have. We know that cyber crime, in particular ransomware, continues to be a persistent threat that we see from cyber criminals, and we know that artificial intelligence is used by cyber criminals to be able to continue to amplify that threat. So it is something we're very conscious about, and in working in the cyber defense domain that we do, working with partners both domestically and internationally, we continue to find solutions to be able to defend against those threats.
So what additional amount is the government providing for you to tackle this amplification of threat?
So fundamentally, in the mains that I get in terms of the funding I have, we are now at a budget of almost $1.6 billion, and in that budget that we've received allows the ability to be able to do what we call cybersecurity and cyber defense, and so that is folded into my budget on a day-to-day basis. What I do in the mandate of CSE and leveraging foreign intelligence, staying on top of knowing what is required from a threat perspective, and that includes artificial intelligence, but includes all the other threats that we're concerned about when it comes to Canada's defense.
Yet we're still suffering from incursions. So what is it that you need that you don't have right now to get ahead of the game?
Mr. I have to say I am quite pleased about the ongoing investments that CSE has continued to receive. What we need is for Canadians to recognize that the cyber defense of the country is a whole of society activity. We can't do it alone. It's something we have a role to play as government. We have a role to play as a communication security establishment and the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. But this is where we work with industry. We work with critical infrastructure. We have governance set up to be able to ensure that we're sharing with them foreign intelligence so that they know what's coming at them. I'm proud to say that we have issued over 300 pre-notification notifications on ransomware to industry members, Canadian industry members, to prevent them from actually having an incident occur. And so that's the type of work we're going to continue to do. So the investments is there. What I would ask Canadians to do, in particular private sector, is to continue to invest in their cybersecurity. It's not enough for government to do it alone.
Thank you. And back to the housing of our troops. So 2,000 new units sounds like a lot, but divide that over the different bases that you mentioned, and the existing barracks that, were they in the usual municipal sector, would be condemned. Where will the money come from for the replacement housing, let alone the surge that you're anticipating?
It's a significant hole that we need to climb out of, Chair. Every location has been suffered with choice, whether we invest in readiness or in the infrastructure. The good news is that our ADM for infrastructure has new authorities under the deputy to be able to act quickly. There's more money for maintenance and repair, and the recapitalization of key infrastructure, starting with where our people are, is underway.
I understand that's on a rotating basis, and there's this list, and whoever is in crisis is at the top, and then the constantly decrepit places never get that funding. So is there some kind of injection so these base commanders or the housing authority can get the money it needs to actually do what needs to be done right away?
This is exactly what's
We have unemployed contractors right now, so now is a perfect time.
Yeah, and each location, and what's great about the way we've got the authorities and now the money is we can execute not in a linear fashion, but in every location and use local contractors to help us. We're in a different position than we've ever been in a long time. We've got the right folks working on it, and thankfully we've got the money and authorities to do it quickly.
When is this anticipated to be complete?
Will never be completed. We'll never be satisfied because it's enduring. But I'm just thinking of the locations of many of the members here, Chair. But in Petawawa, for example, it's such an extensive transformation that there will always be recurring maintenance and repair investment as well as the recapitalization. We have work to do, and we've got the right leaders doing it.
Thank you. I know, Mr. Mallet, you're up next. We had suspended for a couple of minutes, and I do want to proceed into supplementary estimates for the votes. Do you have one last question you want to proceed before I get into the votes?
If I could, Mr. Chair. And my question is for Ms. Beck. I had the good fortune to be at the Halifax International Security Forum, as we discussed prior to the session here today. But I was also at the one session on Sunday morning, I believe. You were seated at that one as well, and we had former Defense Minister Mr. Blair in attendance. One of the questions that was directed at the panel, I believe, and towards Mr. Blair, Mr. Blair served it back to you, and the question was, do we have the bandwidth, now that we have the commitment dollar-wise, do we have the bandwidth to carry out, very ambitious, and we're hearing it here today, to carry out all of the plans that are being heard? And we heard earlier from Mr. Anderson, I believe, on some of these questions of the challenge, and your answer was an emphatic absolutely. Could you just expand on that for me, please?
I was actually very pleased to have the opportunity to have that discussion in Halifax, in part because of the people in the room, because those are the ones who are going to make this happen, all of us together. And I think that's an important point. This is not an endeavor only taken up by this department. It's really whole of government. Of course, we have our priorities from an infrastructure perspective, from changes to how we help the Rangers through the Coast Guard now, integration in the north. So it is a plan for the whole of the North with our department, but we are working very closely with the new Major Projects Office, for instance, with our colleagues at CanNor and elsewhere to make sure that the investments that we're making are done with timing that works for everybody else too, because there are lots of investments underway in the North. We also want to ensure that we are making them at the time and in the place that works for our communities. We're talking constantly to ITK, to First Nations, to different levels of communities, in person, online, in writing, to make sure that their needs are taken into account as we make our decisions throughout the year. In fact, this is an ongoing process.
Thank you all for participating and being here. I'm just going to move. You may want to remain just so we don't disrupt the timing. Just so that I'm going to ask, there's 4 votes in the Supplementary Estimates B for 2025-26. And unless anyone objects, I'd like to seek unanimous consent for the committee to group those votes together for a decision. Is there unanimous consent to proceed? Sure. Ladies and gentlemen,
But you grouped them, but now vote on them.
Okay. So shall all votes referred to the committee in the Supplementary Estimates B for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2026 carry?
On division.
Shall I write?
Oh, I would like a recorded division.
Okay, please.
Madame Romanado?
Yes.
Madame Lapointe?
Oui.
Mr. Mallette?
Yes.
Monsieur Watchorn?
Oui.
Mr. Bazan?
Nay.
Nay.
Mr. Anderson?
Nay.
Ms. Gallant?
Nay.
Mr. Kibble?
Nay.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay?
Abstention.
Abstention.
Yeas 4, 4, nays 4 contre. So in the, as it's a tie, it's the chair that has the deciding vote.
I vote in favor. Well, wait, but now shall I report the vote? So I'll report the votes back to the House. I guess
Yes.
it's automatic.
Okay. Point of order.
Point of order, sir.
So, Mr. Chair, at the end of last meeting, you adjourned without seeking consent from the committee. As you know, it's your job to ensure that all members are heard and that you're to protect our rights to speak at this committee. You didn't seek consent to adjourn. I wish you would take the time to read through the new 4th edition of the House Procedures and Practices in Chapter 20 on how committees are to operate. I'd also ask that to clarify that if we need resources to extend our meetings, that anyone on committee can make that request, and that how much time do we need to make that request and ensure that extra resources are available to extend meetings.
Un point également, Monsieur le Président, si vous permettez.
A point as well, Mr. Chair. You said, and I remember the circumstances that I had, is that I had tabled a motion that was not unanimous, and there was this desire on the other side to.
Pardon, c'est du débat, ce n'est
I
pas
will
un
get.
rappel au règlement.
I will get there. You mentioned, and this is a point of order, if you allow me. You mentioned at the time that we did not have the resources. You swiftly adjourned, and yet we have evidence on paper that we would have had an extra 15 minutes of resources. So the information you communicated to this committee was wrong.
So if I may, I'll respond to this. First, it's important to recall that both the standing orders and the House of Commons procedures and practices require interpretation in their application to real-time committee situations. Members may have differing views on how particular rules should be applied, and that's perfectly normal. What matters is that we rely on the full body of rules, practices, and speakers' interpretations to guide our work. In this case, the meeting schedule's time had expired. When the committee reaches the end of its allotted time or must vacate the room, it is the chair's obligation to adjourn the meeting. That adjournment does not dispose of the motion under debate, nor does it bring debate to an end within the meeting of the standing order 1162. The motion remains before the committee, and the debate may continue. However, it has been the practice, and Mr. Tremblay, you yourself have asked for this meeting to adjourn on time and not to be extended. And it is at the discretion of the chair to enable those extra time. But regarded, that the clearly expressed the interpretation that no single interpretation is automatically determinative. The matters can be challenged or tested. The role as chair is to apply the rules fairly and consistently based on the full set of authorities available to us. And I remain committed to ensuring that all members' rights, both to speak and to have their motions considered, are respected. So I proceeded to adjourn, as has been my privilege and as my responsibility as chair to maintain the time. We already had been delayed by 17 minutes, and I know you yourself have complained about the fact that it's gone on too long. Mr. Bazin, you're next.
Après, étant donné que vous m'interpellez, vous allez me laisser la parole après, s'il vous plaît.
I'm sorry.
Hopefully you'll give me time to reply to that.
Okay, first of all, you didn't address the concern about who can make the request to have extra resources so we can extend. And again, you do not have the right to adjourn without consent from the committee. And you adjourned because you wanted to shut down debate, which is in direct violation of the right to speak in this House and in these committees.
I'll respond to that. That is your interpretation. That is not the case. And I have had that flexibility. It's within the rules and order to enable me to adjourn, and the time had expired, and I told you to do so. Mr. Tremblay.
Bon, tout d'abord, pour répondre, étant donné que vous
First, to reply, given that you were referring to me, I asked that we finish meetings earlier because in my case, at that point, I couldn't. But of course, everyone needs to be consulted. Can we go on or not? In this particular case, my question, the main one, and I understand your reasons, you want to finish on time, etc., but why communicate false information on the availability of resources?
No false information. I chose not to extend and that we did not take on extra time because we were trying to respect your desire
Monsieur
to
le
be
Président,
closing on
vous
time.
avez
So
dit nous n'avons plus les ressources.
Mr. Chair, you said we no longer have the resources, but we have evidence to the contrary.
the resources because I didn't request it. So that's true. So no resources and the time adjourned. Yeah.
Still on this point of order. So it's my understanding that the resources are available for 2 hours, 15 minutes per committee in case we run late. We started 15 minutes late, so that meant that we had another 15 minutes when you adjourned at 1:45. At the last meeting. So there was at least 15 minutes left for us. And so I agree with Mr. Savard Tremblay in that you adjourned before resources were out and you adjourned to shut down debate. Those two things are not boding well for you in that chair. You want to maintain good order and good collaboration, then I ask that you be fair in your administration as chair of this committee.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Vivian Lapointe.
Mr. Chair. There's, in terms of my point of order, there's a difference between ending debate and adjourning a meeting. So if I have the floor, Mr. Bazan, I have the floor.
Please.
Adjourning a meeting is routine, it's procedural, and it does not require the disposition of a motion. It does not, whereas ending debate does, and the chair did not end debate. He adjourned the meeting. So there's a distinction that needs to be made here. We had already run 17 minutes past the meeting time. We continued until 17 minutes past the meeting time. So therefore, the chair has the prerogative to determine that additional resources had been used, and at that point can adjourn a meeting. So everything was done within the proper procedural protocols of a committee. And I just wanted to make that clarification. There's a difference between ending debate and adjourning a meeting. And what the chair did is he adjourned the meeting. He did not end debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, time has expired. I am sensitive to that. With your concurrence, I will adjourn the meeting. Now, our next meeting is going to be, we're trying to get Mr. Fish, Justice Fish, to attend our next meeting, so that'll delay clause by clause. And we'll proceed. To the witnesses, once again, thank you for your service to Canada and all work you do, and we appreciate you being here. Meeting adjourned.